Deep beneath the French countryside, 18 meters underground, a German railway tunnel sits in darkness. Then comes the whistle of something falling from the heavens, followed by an almighty crash. The earth does not just shake, it convulses. The tunnel collapses entirely, and with it, Germany's ability to reinforce the beaches of Normandy. This was not conventional warfare. This was something altogether different. This was Britain's earthquake bomb, and it changed everything. Barnes Wallis was already well known by the early 1940s. His bouncing bomb had earned him a place in British engineering legend, but his mind never stopped racing. What troubled him most were the German bunkers. These were not ordinary fortifications. They were monstrous concrete structures with walls up to 7 meters thick, roofs of steel reinforced concrete measuring 8 meters in places, and foundations that seemed utterly impenetrable to anything the RAF could throw at them. How do you defeat something built to withstand direct hits? The submarine pens at Saint-Nazaire haunted British military planners. German U-boats slipped in and out beneath concrete ceilings so thick that conventional bombs simply bounced off them, their explosions dissipating harmlessly into the air. Meanwhile, deep in occupied France, Hitler's engineers were constructing launch sites for the terrifying WWII weapons beneath domes weighing 55,000 tons. Every bomb dropped on these targets was a wasted effort. The explosives would detonate at or near the surface, sending shockwaves through the air where they lost most of their destructive force. Wallis understood something fundamental about physics that others had overlooked. Sound and shockwaves travel differently through different materials. In air, they disperse quickly, losing energy. But through solid earth or rock, they transmit with devastating efficiency. An explosion deep underground would send tremors through the very foundations of a structure, shaking it apart from within. Rather than trying to punch through meters of concrete from above, why not attack from below? The concept was brilliant in its simplicity, yet terrifyingly complex to execute. In March 1941, Wallis put pen to paper. His proposal outlined a 10-ton bomb that would be dropped from 40,000 feet, reaching near supersonic speeds as it plummeted toward the Earth. Upon impact, it would burrow 130 feet underground before detonating. The resulting explosion would create a massive underground cavity, while simultaneously sending shockwaves through the ground in all directions. Any structure within range would have its foundations literally shifted, misaligned, or completely destroyed. He called it the earthquake bomb. The Air Ministry thought him quite mad. Britain had only just begun using 4-engined bombers. Most of the fleet still relied on twin-engine aircraft struggling to carry bombs weighing merely 1,000 pounds. The idea of a 10-ton weapon dropped from 40,000 feet seemed pure fantasy. Wallis even designed a special 6-engine aircraft called the Victory Bomber, specifically for this purpose, but his proposals were swiftly rejected. He was too far ahead of his time. But Wallis refused to abandon his vision. After the success of the Dambusters raid in May 1943, Royal Air Force Bomber Command began listening to his ideas with renewed interest. Perhaps this eccentric engineer wasn't so mad after all. By August 1943, development began on a scaled-down version of his original concept. It would weigh 12,000 pounds and be designated the Tallboy. Can you picture the engineering challenge? The bomb had to be extraordinarily strong to survive impact at 750 miles per hour without shattering. Its casing was forged from a single piece of high tensile steel over 4 inches thick at the nose. The design was sleek and aerodynamic, with a tail section comprising half the weapon's total length. Inside its hardened shell sat 5,200 pounds of Torpex, an explosive 50% more powerful than TNT. The whole thing measured 21 feet from nose to tail. During testing, they discovered an unexpected problem. As the bomb fell and approached the speed of sound, it would tumble and veer off course. Wallis solved this with typical ingenuity. He offset the tail fins by 5 degrees, causing the bomb to spin as it fell. The gyroscopic effect kept it stable and dramatically improved accuracy. Every Tallboy was handcrafted at the Vickers facility in Brooklands, a painstaking process that made each weapon extraordinarily expensive. Crews were instructed to bring them home if they could not drop them on target, rather than jettison them into the sea. The first operational use came on the 8th of June 1944, just 2 days after D-Day. The target was the Saumur railway tunnel in France, the only north-south route across the Loire River. 19 Lancaster bombers from 617 Squadron, each carrying a Tallboy, took off into the night sky. The mission was crucial. If successful, it would prevent German reinforcements from reaching the invasion beaches. What happened next was extraordinary. Back in Britain, families gathered round wireless sets, desperate for news from France. They didn't know about the earthquake bombs. Such details remained classified, but they knew their boys were out there doing something vital. In workshops across the country, women and men worked double shifts, producing components for weapons they'd never see. The whole nation was united in a singular purpose. Victory depended on innovation as much as courage, and Britain had both in abundance. Each successful mission brought hope that the war might end sooner, that loved ones might come home. One Tallboy struck the hillside above the tunnel and kept going. It bored through 18 meters of solid rock before detonating deep inside the mountain. The tunnel didn't just collapse, it was obliterated. The entire rail line remained unusable until the war's end. Every aircraft returned safely. The earthquake bomb had proven itself spectacularly. Word spread quickly through Bomber Command. Here was a weapon that could achieve what nothing else could. Soon, Tallboys were being deployed against the most formidable targets in occupied Europe. The massive La Coupole complex, with its 55,000-ton concrete dome, was attacked in June 1944. Multiple near misses from Tallboys damaged the structure so severely that construction was abandoned. The weapon did not even need direct hits. Landing within 50 meters was often sufficient. The seismic shock would crack foundations and shift the ground beneath, rendering even the most solid structure unstable. Then came one of the most audacious missions of the entire war. The German battleship Tirpitz, sister ship to the legendary Bismarck, lurked in Norwegian fjords, threatening Allied convoys. Previous attempts to sink her had failed. In November 1944, Lancasters from 9 Squadron and 617 Squadron flew from Scotland to Norway, operating at their maximum range. They found the Tirpitz and unleashed their Tallboys. 3 direct hits were recorded. The mighty battleship capsized and sank. Can you imagine the elation? But Wallis had not finished. If the Lancaster could be modified to carry a 12,000-pound bomb, why not something even larger? Work began on the Grand Slam in July 1944. This monster would weigh 22,000 pounds, the heaviest conventional bomb deployed during the entire war. Its casing contained 9,000 pounds of Torpex, nearly double that of the Tallboy. To carry it, Lancaster bombers required radical modifications. Bomb bay doors were completely removed and replaced with lightweight fairings. Gun turrets came out to save weight. More powerful engines and improved propellers were fitted. When a Lancaster carrying a Grand Slam took off, the aircraft's wings visibly bent under the strain. After release, the bomber would suddenly surge upward 200 to 300 feet as 10 tons of weight fell away. The crews described it as both terrifying and exhilarating. These weapons could penetrate up to 130 feet into earth or concrete before exploding, creating craters 70 feet deep and more than 100 feet across. The seismic effects could be measured over 100 miles away. The men who flew these missions were acutely aware of what they carried beneath their aircraft. Each Tallboy cost as much as a house. Each Grand Slam represented weeks of labour by skilled metalworkers in Sheffield. The Vickers Don Valley facility was one of the few forges in Britain capable of handling such massive steel casings. Workers there knew they were creating something unprecedented. Can you imagine the pride they must have felt? The secrecy surrounding these weapons was absolute. Even bomber crews were not told exactly how they worked, only that they must release them from precise altitudes and headings. Squadron leader Leonard Cheshire, commander of 617 Squadron, became legendary for his ability to mark targets with pinpoint accuracy. Flying a Mustang at low level while Lancasters circled above, he would dive through flak to place markers exactly where the earthquake bombs needed to fall. The bombing runs required nerves of steel. Unlike conventional raids where aircraft could take evasive action, Tallboy and Grand Slam missions demanded straight and level flight during the final approach. The bombardier needed precision and time to calculate the exact release point. Those precious seconds felt like hours while German anti-aircraft fire filled the sky around them. One miscalculation and the bomb would miss. The target would survive. The mission would fail. The first Grand Slam was dropped on the 14th of March 1945 against the Bielefeld Viaduct in Germany. This vital rail link had withstood previous attacks. The Grand Slam landed 80 yards from the target, burrowed deep, and detonated 11 seconds later. The ground shifted catastrophically. 2 spans of the viaduct collapsed. Railway traffic ceased immediately. Over the following weeks, Grand Slams and Tallboys devastated one target after another. Bridges, viaducts, submarine pens, and V-weapon sites. Structures that had seemed indestructible crumbled beneath these seismic assaults. The psychological impact on German defenders was immense. They knew that when the Royal Air Force came with earthquake bombs, there was nowhere to hide. Concrete that had protected them from conventional weapons became almost irrelevant. The ground itself became the enemy. Production continued right until the war's end. 854 Tallboys were manufactured, along with 42 Grand Slams. Each one represented thousands of hours of skilled labor and precious wartime resources. Some of these weapons never exploded. In 1958, a Tallboy was discovered in the Sorp Dam during routine maintenance, lying dormant in the mud since a raid in 1944. It was successfully defused. More recently, in 2020, another Tallboy was found in a Polish canal, dropped during an attack on the German cruiser Lutzow in April 1945. During defusing operations, it detonated accidentally. No one was hurt, but the blast created a massive crater and sent shockwaves across the water. Even 7 decades later, these weapons retain their devastating power. The legacy of Wallis's earthquake bombs extends far beyond the Second World War. Modern bunker-busting weapons, from the American GBU-28 used in the Gulf War to the massive ordnance penetrator, all trace their lineage back to those pioneering designs from the 1940s. The concept of using seismic shockwaves rather than surface explosions revolutionized military thinking about hardened targets. What Wallis achieved with slide rules and inspired engineering, today's weapons accomplish with computers and precision guidance systems. Yet there is something almost poetic about those original weapons. They were born from necessity, refined through ingenuity, and deployed with extraordinary skill by bomber crews who understood their significance. Each mission carrying a Tallboy or Grand Slam was a high-stakes gamble. These were not mass-produced weapons churned out in factories, they were precision instruments, each one individually crafted, each one representing Britain's determination to overcome seemingly impossible obstacles. The men who designed them, built them, and dropped them are mostly gone now. The last Lancaster bomber crews have largely passed into memory, but examples of these extraordinary weapons remain preserved in museums across Britain. At the Royal Air Force Museum in London, a complete Grand Slam stands as testament to British engineering at its finest. At Brooklands, where many of these weapons were manufactured, another rests on display. They are not just bombs, they are monuments to human ingenuity in the darkest of times. Today, those earthquake bombs rest quietly in museums, far from the battlefields where they once shook the earth. They remind us that British ingenuity, determination, and sheer bloody-mindedness could overcome any obstacle. From Barnes Wallis's drawing board to the ruins of fortifications, these weapons changed warfare forever. What stories do you carry from those times? Perhaps a relative you have who worked in wartime factories or served with Bomber Command. We'd love to hear your memories and suggestions for future programs. Leave your thoughts below.